United States versus Richard Nixon, 1974. In 1974, President Richard Nixon appeared before the Supreme Court for withholding access to certain recordings related to the Watergate break-ins. Nixon claimed certain executive privilege under the Constitution, and so it was taken to court. The origins of this case go back to 1972, where 5 men were caught breaking into the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee at the Watergate complex in Washington, D.C. Investigations revealed connections between the burglars and President Nixon's re-election campaign. As investigators dug deeper, they discovered that Nixon had a secret recording system in the White House that taped conversations in the Oval Office. They believed that these tapes could provide evidence important for their investigation of Watergate, and so they demanded access to Nixon's tapes. The court did this by ordering a subpoena. Subpoena requires that a citizen give testimony, provide evidence, or appear in court under penalty of law. Nixon refused, claiming that as a president, he had a legal right to refuse handing over the tapes. He argued that they were solely confidential and that his executive privilege enabled him to refuse a subpoena. And so, he was argued in court before the Supreme Court on July 8, 1974. The primary debate on that day was whether or not the president had the privilege to legally refuse a subpoena under constitutional law. Leon Jaworski's team represented the prosecution. They argued that the Constitution gives the judiciary power to obtain evidence for criminal cases and that the president must comply with court subpoenas. They emphasized the importance of the tapes for the criminal Watergate investigation. Nixon, represented primarily by James D. St. Clair, attempted to reaffirm his legal right to confidentiality. St. Clair argued about the president that this would set, that the president and his advisors wouldn't speak freely if they knew their discussions could end up in court. He emphasized that the implied constitutional power of the executive branch and how powers of confidentiality and security are needed for the executive to function properly. The court ruled 8-0 against Richard Nixon, with Justice Rehnquist not supported either side. Richard Nixon was now forced to hand over the tapes. This directly led to the finding of the smoking gun tapes, showing Nixon's connection to the cover-up of the Watergate burglaries and Nixon's eventual resignation. This ruling established the idea that nobody, including the president, is above the law.